It's about ability and marketability. There are a lot of people that have amazing talent, but not the personality, not the marketability. They could be the greatest at what they do. If people aren't interested, it sort of doesn't matter. Being marketable has to be organic. You can't force somebody to be marketable. You can't force them to do interviews. You can't force them for people to like them. It's just part of the package. It's natural. We keep going back to Tyson Fury. It's natural. This is the best showman in all of sports, forgetting boxing. There's no question. It's a natural thing. Alexander Usyk, quiet guy, really, really good at what he does. You know, obviously heavyweight champion, but a very quiet guy. I wouldn't call him charismatic. You know, so it's just different personality.
Hello and welcome to the Ronny Leber Show, where every week we bring you fascinating guests with inspiring stories of success and overcoming obstacles from the worlds of sports, business, and entertainment. To support this channel, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and hit the like button so that we can deliver you the best content possible. He grew up in Long Island and Miami. He's a father of 3 grown-up kids and a big fan of movies. Having spent his entire 41-year career in the world of boxing, he's now the COO of Top Rank, one of the biggest boxing promotions in the world, joining us live right now from his home in Miami, Florida. I'm very delighted and happy to have him on the show. Please welcome, here's Brad Jacobs. Woo!
Thank you. I like that introduction.
Well, I'm happy you like it. So when you look at your life today, looking back at a career full of magic moments, full of incredible events, and with a lot of airplanes actually, and just having been inducted into in the National Boxing Hall of Fame, was that something that you always dreamed about, or did you have something else in mind when you were a kid?
Yeah, no, I mean, I sort of always wanted to be in the sports business. And I actually got into the sports business in the world of soccer, and indoor soccer of all things, and only by chance. I finished college, and my family was living in California at the time, and I went to San Francisco, and there was an ad in the newspaper for a new indoor soccer league team that was starting there, and they were looking for a director of sales. I was 21 years old, and I applied and got the job. Knew nothing about sales or soccer, but somehow I got in, and at the time was the youngest executive in sports, in a major league. They called it the Major Indoor Soccer League. But anyway, um, uh, so yeah, I wanted to be in sports. I wanted to be in the business. The twists and turns of getting into the boxing world, which again is something else I knew nothing about. Are interesting, but it shows. You can't sort of, in my opinion, you can't sort of just set a course. Hey, I want to work at this company or that company, because life takes its turns, and for whatever reasons, you wind up doing what you do.
Wow. So but it was always going to be sports, but you didn't really. So in the beginning, it's oftentimes like, okay, let's just see what opportunities present themselves, which in your case was indoor soccer. And especially in the early 80s, soccer was not a big thing in the US. And I can imagine indoor soccer was even less of a thing back then, but just got to take with.
It definitely was.
So, but at the same time, it's also of just taking the opportunity to present themselves, especially when you're just starting out, isn't it?
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, look, I'm a big believer in, and I had to do this, in doing whatever it takes to do what you want to do. So in my case, when I got into the boxing world, I literally was carrying buckets around and picking up people at the airport and doing whatever needed to get done for the event to take off successfully. And as I was doing that, I was learning the business, learning the personalities, um, figuring out what worked, what didn't work, over a course of time, not in the first week. And then sort of figured out what side of the business I wanted to be on. And although I worked for a promoter for, let's call it 5, 6 years, I didn't want to be a promoter. I wanted to be on at that time. I wanted to be at the television side of the business, which is eventually where I got to for a great period of time. But you know, I'm a big believer in learning as much about what you're doing, even if it's not something you're involved in on a day-to-day basis.
Just for somebody who's not from the world of boxing, and also you mentioned before that you were growing into that as well, and I also believe that it's a little bit differently organized in the US and all than in Europe, in terms of promoters and managers and so on, because for example in Europe there are some people that are promoters and also managers. In the US I think this is more strictly set apart. And but what does a
Yeah.
promoter do just for somebody who is not from the world of boxing?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the promoter is like the producer of a Broadway play. They take all the risk, they bring the athletes together, and hopefully, at the end of the day, after you've paid everybody, there's a profit. Not always the case, but that is what it is. And so the promoters are responsible for making the media rights deals with television networks like ESPN or whoever it may be to get the revenue to stage the events. And television revenue is only one source of revenue. There's sponsors, there's ticket sales, and international television rights, and things of that nature that all go into a pool, and you pay out from there. And like I said, some events are successful, some are not successful, but in the overall scheme of things, we've been at this at Top Rank almost 60 years. So we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't successful. But it's not an easy business. It's tough. We've got to take your losses with the gains, and the personalities are tough. Everybody's independent. It's not like a league where the players or the participants have to abide by certain rules, etc. Everybody's an individual. So it's very challenging in that way, but also rewarding.
It sounds a bit like the movie industry. When you're a movie studio like Warner Brothers or 20th Century Fox or Disney or whatever you
Mhm.
are, that basically there are certain movies that are a total box office hit, they're a total success, and then there are actually more movies that are not. But those big successes refinance everything else.
Yeah, there's no question. It's very similar. Movie and music business are very similar to the boxing business. And you have independent artists, all these types of things, and you may or may not make money on a particular event. And that's why we've sort of changed our business model from the one night business, which was when we used to be with HBO, which was a great network, and the things were great at that time. But you were dependent on HBO saying, okay, we just did an event in March. Let's do another one in September. Well, I've got a staff of 30 or 40 people. What am I doing with these
Yeah,
people in
what are they
between?
going to do now
So we
until then?
sort of just said, right. So, we said as a company, we have to look at this differently. Let's get a media partner that is consistency. We're doing a certain amount of events a year, on and on. And that's what we came to with ESPN. But at the end of the day, it's very similar to movie and music business, and the whims of the public who may or may not want to watch a particular event or movie or listen to music.
Let's take a step back into your first steps into the boxing world. And you said that you were like a greenhorn or a fresh kid. You didn't know a lot about the boxing business. What was your sport when you were growing up? I'm sure you had some favorite sports. And at the same time, what were the first things that you for yourself had to learn? You already mentioned you were a limo driver. You were like picking up people from the airport and those kind of things. What were the learnings and what were the obstacles also that you had to overcome?
Yeah, so it all sort of comes back to basketball. And I was a high school basketball player, as bad as you can get, but I was the tallest kid at 6'2" on the team, so I was the center, right? Um, but I loved the game. It was a lot of fun, and I went to college, the University of South Florida, and of course I couldn't play, and nowhere near the talent, but I became the student manager for the team. That was a lot of fun. Traveled the world, not the world, but traveled the country. doing those things. And that's, again, another position where you sort of just have to do everything. The good stuff comes with the bad. You got to do the laundry, but you get to sit on the bench, so it's a mix of stuff. So through that, I met a sports writer who covered our team, and we skip a little time, but to whatever it was, that needed to be done, I did. And that sort of started a 6 or 7 year career with this promotional outfit called Alessi Promotions. And the sad part of it, but good part eventually for me, was the gentleman named Ken Rosenberg who hired me from the newspaper, went to the boxing, contracted leukemia, and unfortunately passed away about a year later. I was maybe 23, and they sort of said, "Well, it's now your burden to carry, and now you become the matchmaker, and you become the business negotiator, and do these other things." And at that point, it sort of became a little natural to me, and that's what I did.
Wow, amazing. And isn't it oftentimes as we rise to the occasion that it's sometimes
Mhm.
I don't know if you felt ready at the time or not, but sometimes it's just like, okay, stepping up a bit. When you just also looking back at those early days, what do you think are the character traits somebody needs to bring when they're just starting out or when they want to step into a world where they're not yet really acquainted with, but they really want to be successful in that field?
I mean, to me, it's a lot of not saying no, being available, and learning as you go. And that doesn't mean sort of BSing your way through it or something like that. I think that people who are depending on you, you say, you don't have to be dishonest and say, "Oh, I know everything about this." I'm learning. I'm doing it. I'm out there every day grinding it out, and I'll know pretty soon how to handle this, and spend your time that way rather than trying to figure out ways not to do it.
I guess it's also something that you're actually also seeing very early in the talent, in somebody that you're actually working with, if they bring those character traits with them.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I now, sort of further on in my career, people that I hire, and in certain positions, they may not wind up in the position that they started because they show talent or interest in other areas that are needed. And we have a perfect situation like that in our office, where one of our gentlemen is a media relations person, but he also likes the matchmaking side of the business, and so he's gotten involved in that in certain aspects. So yeah, you've got to sort of have an eye for what people's talents are and try to get those strengths out of them.
Very fascinating. Also, I saw a picture of you when you were, well, okay, let's put it this way. It was with the greatest of all time, with Muhammad Ali, and he was younger. I mean, first of all, he was alive, but he was also younger.
you're
And
you're being very kind. Yes.
and um, how was that? Like the Alessi promotion where you started out, it was not the biggest promotion, was it? But how did
No.
you get into, because Muhammad Ali, of course, was a household name around the world, and
Yeah.
there were quite some shining stars in the boxing world. How did you get into this world, and also were you intimidated at first, or was it something that just grew in naturally, or how was that?
Yeah, I mean, I like everybody, even though, again, I said I didn't know anything about boxing. I was a fan of Muhammad Ali, like I think everybody was, just for his charisma and abilities, etc. And although Alessi Promotions was a very small company in the big picture of the business, we were progressive and we wanted to do new things, etc. We had a relationship with NBC Sports, and we staged events for NBC all the time, but we wanted to develop an amateur boxing program called the Muhammad Ali National Tournament, and out of that develop champions that would then turn pro, on and on. So we started the progress of getting this together. And how I met Muhammad at that time was we went to go do a video, not a commercial, but a video about the tournament featuring him, with him explaining what the tournament was, on and on. So the picture that you saw took place in the studio that we did that. That was probably 1985 or something like that, 86. So, he wasn't fighting anymore, but, it was a thrill to meet him. And then subsequently to that, I met him a few times, and now I've become very friendly with his twin daughters and their son, Nico Ali Walsh, who fights for Top Rank, Muhammad's grandson.
Wow, amazing. That's very nice. And how what like how was it for you? Do you remember the first meeting with Muhammad Ali?
Yeah, I think I was like anybody else. I was in awe, but at the end of the day, people are people. He was a nice guy. We had fun. You know, uh, he had a couple of quick standard lines he does with people, which was fun, and uh, I got to get that picture, which is I cherish.
Very beautiful, and I think you point out a very beautiful point here that oftentimes we tend to put people who are very who have succeeded a lot and who have had a lot of success on a pedestal. That we see them somewhere up there, but at the end, it's just about talking with people. So when you are meeting somebody, it's really about this aspect also in terms of a networking world, because it's very important to just at the end, it's all a communication one to one from one person to another person, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think you'll find with most people, Muhammad Ali, Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion, is a good example of that. Actors, other people I've met in the business world or otherwise, like you say, they're just people, and they have sort of a public image and a public image they want to keep up. But at the end of the day, they still have to go do their laundry and drive kids to school and do all these things. So it's a public persona that sort of keeps people in the public view, but for the most part, people are just people.
When you look back one more time at the old days, what were the challenges that you had to overcome? Like I'm sure that as you rose through the
Well,
ranks, there were a lot of challenges that you had to overcome.
yeah, I mean, I think about now with all the technology that we have with, phones and texting and WhatsApping and this thing and that thing, and still it's not good enough to get somebody when you need them and all that. And think about then, at least in the beginning with no cell phones, fax machine, you were the greatest guy in the world, kind of thing. So I think just communication and things of those nature early on was a tough hurdle. But I personally I like technology and things of that nature. So whatever came out, I was trying to use it, even though other people may not have had it. I was trying to use it at the time, and we're very sort of tech focused at Top Rank, making sure to streamline everything we can because we're almost a 24/7 business because we deal with countries or broadcasters and promoters and things all over the world all the time, and there's no season in boxing. It's 12 months. So I'll get up in the morning, there'll be 20 WhatsApps from Saudi Arabia or China or somewhere, and so that technology really helps us.
Incredible, especially when you're running basically a global company in your case. And at the same time, what I was asking myself with all those communication messages going on, how do you stay organized yourself? What's the Brad Jacobs secret of success?
Yeah. So it's a good question. What I like to try to do, and I'm not always successful at it, but I try to finish everything I can by the end of the day. And if that end of the day is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, but I don't want to go to sleep with things hanging over my head. So I try to get those things out of the way, and I do try to do things immediately as they come on my plate. Trying to put things to the side and ignoring them for a while just it doesn't work for me. it just builds up, and you're also not responding to people properly. So I try to, and I also instill in those at top rank, deal with the issue, deal with the problem, even if it's not a problem, just deal with it, get it over with, and move on, because we have so much going on a daily basis. If you don't, it's going to pile up and you're going to fail. So, I do use, checklists and, digital checklists and things of that nature. Always got the phone in my hand reminding me of things. I don't depend on my memory for anything. Not that my memory is bad, but I don't want to think about did I do that or do automatically it goes on a to-do list. Check it off, it's over, it's gone. So and we're big believers also in no matter what, as many shows literally I've done 2,000 events, whatever it may be. I don't want to rely on my memory or my staff's memory of how to do things. Let's go through the list. Did we do that? And inevitably, something got forgotten or missed, not intentionally, but it happens. So, agendas, long, detailed lists. Some of my people get a little crazy with me because
I read
I
you
have
have a
them dig
300 plus
down.
item
You know,
event execution plan list. I read
that
it's
is
300 plus items.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. Because,
What's on the list?
let's talk about, I mean, just a simple thing. I mean, talk about a simple thing. We sort of keep going back to it, but having people picked up at the airport. Okay, it's great to plan that. What company are we using? Who's the contact? What's the phone number? Are they available 24/7? What do we do if they're not available? What's option B? Things of that nature. So, and that's with everything you think of, the boxing ring, the arena, the lighting crew, the television production, all these things, there's a lot of moving parts. And, that's not to say that, we're not in a groove and people are doing their thing, but I'm always sort of just going through and make sure, worst case mental check off that we're doing things.
That's fantastic, and especially thinking about that, you do not have a job where you're always at the same place. You have a home in Miami. The company is actually in Las Vegas.
Or
You have
yeah,
events. You have events everywhere around the country, also globally. So basically, staying organized is a must in your case. I also read that you try to always be at home on Sunday as a family day, and with your three kids, and also you love to watch
yeah.
movies. I heard, and then Sunday evening it's about planning the next week.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
Yeah, it basically is. I mean, have laptop, will travel. I've got a little office in my house, but we're basically on the road. We're staging 30 plus events a year. So just think about that. We don't just show up on fight night. Most of my staff is there on a Tuesday for a Saturday event. I'll get there maybe Wednesday night or Thursday, but that's 30 weekends out of 52. So we're and that doesn't account for other things that we have to do, meetings and press conferences and other things where we have to be. So, and don't get me wrong, there are events of ours that I miss because I'm in London for a press conference or other things, and that's why we have a terrific team and crew that handle these things. I don't have to be at every event, so we get it done. But like we just did an event in Saudi Arabia last week. We're in Vegas next week. We're in Florida the week after that. Japan 2 weeks later. So, like you say, we're all over the place.
Wow, incredible! And normally you just stage your own events, and you just mentioned you're in Vegas next week. Next week there is also the Formula One Grand Prix in Las Vegas for the. Is it for the first or for the second time?
Mhm.
But it's quite new actually, and
First,
you're gonna be
yeah.
part of that in a way. Like on Thursday, you have there a double main event, basically a double world championship fight. Are you still going to be your own thing, or are you part of the whole spiel, so to say? Or how does it work?
Yeah, so we identified, when F1 decided to come to Las Vegas, again, our offices are in Las Vegas. that we want to sort of be attached with big events. So F1, and now we're going to be doing the same thing around the Super Bowl in February.
Wow.
We also knew that it would be foolish to try to do that on the Friday or Saturday night when there are 100 other things going on related to the big events. So we picked Thursday night, figuring people are going to get in town. They may be looking for things to do. There's a good international atmosphere and exposure with media for a lot of our fighters, people who haven't seen them before, etc. So yeah, we'll be doing a double world title fight at T-Mobile Arena next Thursday night, live on ESPN, featuring what many consider the pound for pound top 5 fighter, a guy named Shakur Stevenson. That's an event that's been in the works for a long time. We've already secured the same Thursday night for F1 the following year. And like I said, we're doing a very similar thing around Super Bowl in February.
That's fantastic. And it's really, I would say also from a business perspective, it's very smart because you're thinking outside the box. You're thinking of where can I put my product into another market, or how can I attach and how can I actually piggyback on something and at the same time make my thing bigger and also make the whole product bigger.
Correct. And, look, F1, it's happening. We're not, quote, a part of the event because they don't really sort of sanction other events. But like you said, taking advantage of, the opportunity, the timing, and our relationships with the MGM brand, who made clear the building for us to stage the event and things of that nature. So yeah, and more importantly than almost, you know, the fans that are there, is, like you said, is the relationships of all these broadcasters from around the world that'll be there and come to the fight, and media personalities, drivers, celebrities, all these types of people will be there, and it's sort of a good mix.
Wow. So it's a win-win-win situation, so to say. And at the same time, also, there is
We
another
hope
big
so.
fight. Yeah, there's another big fight coming up in February, which will be for the unanimous heavyweight championship in the world. Because, and one of those fighters is actually a top ranked fighter, which is, you already mentioned him, um, Tyson Fury, and Alexander Usyk is going to be the other guy. So, what's going to be your
Yeah.
role in that fight? And this kind of mega event, how is that being produced? How does this
Yep.
come together?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. It's a very complicated situation trying to pull together the undisputed heavyweight championship, which means all the belts are on the line. Alexander Usyk has 3 belts. Tyson Fury is the linear champion and has 1 belt. So whoever walks away from that fight, the winner is the undisputed heavyweight champion. Because I know boxing can be a little confusing at times to people with the different champions in the same weight divisions, and it's something we need to overcome, for the fans. But in this case, that's the plan. It's not announced yet, but planned for February. Should be an announcement very soon. But generally, a fight like that takes a lot of parties. In this case, the General Entertainment Authority from the Saudi Arabia is staging the event. We, along with a company called Queensberry in London, are Tyson Fury's co-promoters. So, we deal directly with the Saudis in staging the event. We just did one with Francis Ngannou, a crossover fight with Tyson Fury, 2 weeks ago. An incredible event where the arena was a flat lot on August 1st and was a 25,000 seat arena when we got the fight night on October 28th. So it was an incredible thing to watch and bear witness to. But yeah, these are complicated fights. These guys are making a lot of money, and between television revenue, Saudi sources, et cetera, it sort of comes together. And again, promoters are at risk, but that's what we do.
Of course, but would you consider, for example, for this fight, it's probably not the biggest risk, is it?
It is and it isn't, because there are complications to a fight like this where the fight is taking place in Saudi Arabia. They try to be as accommodating as possible time wise, but the fight comes over off prime in the US, right? So that's a challenge to get people to watch on a Saturday afternoon, a pay per view event. They're sort of used to a Saturday night. They make a night out of it, on and on. So there's a challenge there, and the bigger challenge is the fighters make a lot of money in a big, big piece of the pie. So you've got to figure out how everyone gets paid in a situation like that, and all this. But that's the business we're in. It's not different than someone owning a coffee shop. They've got to pay their employees, they've got to pay everybody, and hopefully at the end of the week they have a profit.
One part of the business that you already mentioned is you're dealing with a lot of fighters with a lot of different personalities. How do you actually discover talent? What is something that you're looking for? Because this is kind of some of it might be similar to other industry. You might not be a boxing fighter, but you might be a talent in something else. And it's always about really finding that personality, not just somebody who is good at what they do, but also who is marketable, isn't it?
Oh yeah, of course. Look, it's about ability and marketability, right? So there are many fighters, and this is also in all kinds of different businesses and movies and music, etc. But there are a lot of people who have amazing talent, but not the personality, not the marketability, and they could be the greatest at what they do. If people aren't interested, it sort of doesn't matter. We've had our share of guys like that, and being marketable has to be organic. You can't force somebody to be marketable. You can't force them to do interviews. You can't force them to for people to like them. It's just part of the package. It's natural. We keep going back to Tyson Fury. It's natural. This is the best showman in all of sports. Forgetting boxing, there's no question. It's a natural thing. Alexander Usyk, quiet guy, really, really good at what he does. Obviously heavyweight champion, but a very quiet guy. I wouldn't call him charismatic. So it's just different personalities. It's definitely something you have to deal with. But back to your original question, we have sort of a talent evaluation team that they start looking at these fighters when they're 12, 15, 16 years old. We have
Wow.
relationships. A lot of the trainers that we work with professional fighters are working with amateur fighters, and we develop a relationship. And we've been lucky enough to sign many of the gold medalists out of all the Olympics, but certainly the last Olympics. And it's definitely a huge part of our business.
When you think about that, I mean, there's also, of course, let's take football for example. You have the draft process, or also in the NBA or in the NHL and so on, like in all the major American sports, basically. And when you think about
Mm-hmm.
then there, once in a while there comes a talent around like Tom Brady, who was not somebody that was on the talent scouts cards, and then somehow he ended up to be the most successful
Yep.
football player of all time. How do you is this something also? I guess you're also looking into other sports. What are they doing? How are they evaluating? At the same time, how do you make sure that that somebody like that does not slip through your hands?
It's very hard, but there are guys who come out of nowhere. By example, I'm sure you've heard of Manny Pacquiao.
Of
Manny
course.
Pacquiao came to the United States as an opponent on a for a fight, whatever year it was. Just a guy that was coming out of the Philippines to last minute to fill in, and then became one of the highest paid athletes of all time. After performing and getting his eye in front of U.S. audience, and I mean that night the announcers couldn't even pronounce his name. So that's how little he was known. So, but there are plenty of stories like that, guys who sort of people don't give a chance to, and they have the heart and ability and drive to do things. And there are other guys who I talk about gold medalists that were medalists in the Olympics. You think you're, just going to have an unbelievable career, and they just don't pan out.
Yeah, and I mean they can be great fighters, but if you're, at the end of the day you're not selling tickets, you're not getting sponsors, or it's nobody wants to watch them, then it's hard to sell in a way as well. And so and also
Yeah,
as I mentioned, Tyson Fury.
it's very hard, and it's also hard for the fighter and his team to really recognize that. Hey, we're the best, whatever in the world. Yes, but that's a piece of the puzzle. That's not the entire puzzle. People, like you just said, have to have an interest in watching you fight, fill up arenas, do television ratings, and that's how the financial aspect of the business gets done. You do those, that trajectory happens. You don't, you stay level.
And you mentioned Tyson Fury before, and some people love him, some people hate him, but he's polarizing. He's not boring, and the last thing that you want to be is boring.
Yeah, look, I think that's the key to success, especially in our business and some other sort of one-on-one businesses, wrestling or UFC or a few of those other. If people both like you and dislike you at the same time, you're sort of doing something right.
Wow. Just at the end of our time here, let's do some rapid fire questions to get some quick nuggets out of you. What's one piece of advice that you would like to give somebody who's just starting out of on their professional journey, or maybe is on a pathway of, I would love to go that way, but I'm not sure if I can?
Just do it. Just do it. I mean, I'm taking a Nike slogan here, but just do it. Keep calling the people, keep emailing, keep sending, volunteer, be an intern, whatever it takes, get your foot in the door. Because 95% of the time, once your foot's in the door, you're in. So, it may not be on the time frame you want to do things. It may not be exactly the position you want when you walk in. Got to be open-minded. Make your decision. You want to be in sports, you want to be a stockbroker, whatever it is, and then just find a target and stay on top of those people.
Beautiful. Who is somebody that you admire or look up to, and why?
There are a lot of people. Close to home, Bob Arum, who is the 92-year-old chairman of the board at Top Rank. He's obviously been in this business a long time, 60 years, former U.S. attorney out of New York. And he took an opportunity, just talking about opportunities. He worked in the U.S. attorney's office. There was a case about missing money from a closed circuit boxing event that he investigated. And he went and saw, hey, this is an interesting business. Got out of being an attorney and went and started promoting boxing events. His first fight ever was a Muhammad Ali fight, and it was the first fight he had ever gone to. So interesting there. But the reason I bring up Bob is longevity, relationship building, being fair, things of that nature, really resonate with me, because you'll only have good business, long lasting business with good relationships. And people have to know they can rely on your word, and what you say is over. You don't need a contract. I told you XYZ, XYZ is going to happen.
Wow. Normally, I always ask, what's the best book you ever read and why? I know that you're a big movie fan. You can also answer, what's the best movie you ever watched and why?
It's good. There's a lot. I mean, look, I love The Godfather, and it's out there. There's just so many books. I do a lot of audiobook listening when I'm traveling around, and I can't recall any specific at the moment, but I like a lot of sort of business related stories. I listen to a lot of podcasts, business wars and things of that nature, where you sort of find out, you know, sort of how things really started. And it's amazing how so many companies and businesses just started out from a germ or a mistake or something, and then they took off, and it's great to read and hear about things like that.
Beautiful. If somebody would like to get in touch with you or with Top Rank, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, we have our website, toprank.com. We're all over social media. We're very proud of our social media. We have almost 15 million followers across our platforms, very active there. And they can always find me on any of the platforms.
Fantastic. Any last parting thoughts that you would like to leave us with?
No, look, I think we've covered it, and for those who are sort of starting out their career, I can only talk to what worked for me, and what worked for me was persistence. I wasn't a straight A student. Matter of fact, I didn't finish college because of financial reasons. But persistence, staying on top of things, being organized, being willing to do anything, within reason, of course. I think those are the things that I would recommend or leave with people. That was successful for me. I've seen it successful for other people. Doesn't mean it's the only route, but I think it's the number one route.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Thank you. Very happy to have you on the show once again. Give it up for Brad Jacobs.
Thank you. It was great being on with you.
Thank you for sticking with us until the end. To make this content even more valuable for you, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts, and also share this video with somebody you care about who absolutely needs to see this. Thank you very much. Have an outstanding day and see you next time.